Good morning, Linda here from Huttons Valley Permaculture. It's been drizzly here this morning and I think I've got a small window of opportunity to get out here with my camera. So I thought I'd head to the veggie garden even though I should be up on my swales cutting down more trees. I've got to get some more compost on some of my garden beds and I've got to get the compost turned. This is my new look compost. I've got a canvas tarp to cover my compost, which means I don't have all those little plastic bits getting into it. It's been a long time coming, but I finally got there investing in this material, and it looks like it's fairly resistant to water. We had a bit of rain, well, last night and again this morning. I always find these little insects kind of weird. They all cluster together. I'm not really too sure what they are. If anyone could tell me what they are, I'd love to know. I still covered it with some cardboard just to help maintain heat and the moisture really. But I probably don't need to do this now, so since I've got the canvas. Now temperature wise, it's just in the steady department, so not overly hot, but browning up nicely I think. So I'll get this turned. Well, it probably feels like every second video of mine has me doing something with compost, whether it's gathering the materials, building the pile, turning it, or actually just putting it out on my garden. And the reason for that is I want you to see how integral the compost is to my productive garden. What it does is it's an inoculant for your soil. It brings in the right soil organisms that help protect your plant, improve soil structure and water holding capacity, and also feeds the plants in your garden. So putting time and effort into building compost I think is imperative if you want a really great productive garden. Now where I am here, I have manure on hand, I've got trees to shred, and I've got lots of grasses to cut down and use in my compost, or lots of garden trimmings. But I used to live on a suburban block, and I know that you don't have access to the same sort of amounts of materials. But motivation is key, and even if you do have small properties, you can still gather enough of this material to build compost like I've got going. I mean, you do have to have the space to do it, but you can gather materials all sorts of places. When I lived in suburbia, I would get out early on a Sunday morning in autumn and I'd gather up bags and bags of deciduous fallen trees off nature strips, areas where it's just been left there and nobody wants it. I'd always be on the lookout for areas where there was grasses recently cut that I could rake up and bag and bring home for my compost. You might have to ask permission if it's neighbours, or I'd target gas stations, petrol stations, where they don't care if someone comes along and picks up those grasses and takes them home. I would also just get to the back of my fruit and veggie shops and even the supermarkets and collect scraps out of their bins, which are at the back. They're only just going to landfill often, and nowhere where it can be really utilised well. So again, it's just another great source of ingredients for compost. And for the manures, I would just sort of head out to the semi-rural areas that are close to suburbia really. There's often bagged up horse manure. You do have to be a bit careful of what they've fed their horses, that it doesn't contain herbicides, which can be a problem. Or, just go and ask a local farmer if you can gather up some cow manure off their paddocks. I really don't think they'll mind. Now, the important thing is to get motivated, and to do that, I think you need to learn as much as you can so you've got the why. Why you're going to gather all these materials, why you're going to put in the effort to turn the compost, and why you're going to pop it onto your garden. If you're not motivated, you're not going to do it. So get to the internet, look up the soil food web and really learn about the connections, and you will be sold on compost as much as I am. Please watch one of my earlier videos on the soil food web, which I've watched recently, and it's got really great information. I'll leave a link to that in the description. So you mightn't have a 5-acre property to source your organic materials to build a compost, but there's plenty of resources out there. Please let me know in the comments your favourite places to gather organic materials in your area. It's great to be able to bring a few more of these guys into your garden. Well, that's a few more plants mulched with my beautiful semi-finished compost. The sun seems to be out for the moment, so I might head up to my swales, get some more trees cut down and a few more compost ingredients gathered. I'm out on my swale now. The drizzle has returned and I've just taken a brief moment with no rain to film a few things. What I hope to do today is take down some of these big acacias out on this cutout side of my swale, but also over this side there is some trimming that needs to be done and maybe a tree to take out as well. I'll just have to see how I go. Quite a while ago, my sons came up and helped me put in some fence posts because I want to fence off this top pasture so that I can put my animals here. If I go away for a week or something, the neighbours can throw them some hay. But that's all we got done, one day of work, and we haven't returned to it yet. But before I can do anything much more, I need to take these trees down. I've given my cows and sheep plenty of access to these trees because I know that they have to go, and they've been well and truly damaged. So pretty sure they wouldn't be growing too much more, but they are impacting my pasture grasses and kind of drying everything out. And while they look like fence posts in some spots, they're really not. And over the other side of my swale on the berm, I've got this casuarina tree, which would be good if it just went straight up, but it's got these looping branches around, which if I take those off, it will just open up a bit more sunshine to my pear tree, which is just behind. Because I anticipate it to be raining on and off, and I need to get this job done, I'm not going to film. I'm just going to get on with it, and I'll show you what it looks like at the end. Sun's out for a moment. I feel like I'm kind of halfway through. It was 2 days ago when I cut those other trees down and I was handling my pole pruner pretty well, I thought. But today, there's definitely a little bit of muscle soreness from the other day's efforts, and the muscles are objecting a little bit. So I've done as much as I can, I think, with my pole pruner. It really does take some holding up, and it uses muscles that, you know, don't get used very often. So I'm going to change over to my little chainsaw, and I'll show you again at the end. Well, I've got most of the trees down. Now, the last one I kind of felt nervous about for some reason, and maybe I didn't go in confident enough, but I've had to ring the neighbour in for a bit of help. Most of my trees came down exactly where I wanted them to. But this tree, which I felt nervous about, I felt like the weight wasn't going to go where I wanted it, and sure enough, it's kind of gone back onto my chainsaw. So I'm going to get my neighbour over and see if he's got some ideas to get this down safely. Well, my neighbour's been down and helped me get my chainsaw out. He kind of chopped it up higher and it came down over here and released the chainsaw. Maybe I'd made that sort of too deep. So yeah, perhaps that went in too far, and then it kind of, the weight fell back onto my chainsaw back here. If anyone out there is expert at cutting down trees and can advise, it'd be great to be able to learn what I did wrong. And with that final tree down, that just leaves me with the cleanup, which I might do another day. That pole pruner has really worn out my arms. So I'll wait till I'm kind of strong and ready to go again before I chop the rest of this wood up. And I think the rains will be starting again soon, so I'm already wet enough. I'm going inside. Today I was working on my asparagus bed and I haven't finished it yet. But I thought it might make more sense to get the strawberry bed down the other end ready so I can dig these plants up from the path and put them straight in there. Down the far end of my vegetable garden, past my carrots and my wild spring onion bed, I've got this area here that was once a sweet potato bed, but it's gone back to nature really. It's lots of grasses and random weedy type plants. But it connects to a strawberry bed that kind of established itself really out next to my nursery area. Now some of these plants are a little bit hard to see in amongst, the weeds that have crept in and that I haven't been on top of. But I have dragged out random plants that want to spread around. So I think together with these sorts of plants here and the ones from that other garden bed, I think we should be able to extend this garden back through where all of these grasses are. They did just start to become sort of productive as the weather has been cooling down. So I think if we give a lot more space and perhaps a lot more compost, or even the decomposed wood chips for the strawberries, I think next season they'll do really well. So in between the rain showers that are happening at the moment, I hope to get this area cleared and turned into a strawberry bed. Okay, let's start in here. We'll unearth the hose that's hiding here. Oh, I'll have to dig that one out. My plan lately is to put a bit of time into my veggie garden because I've been enjoying getting that under control. But I do need to dedicate a lot of time up to my swale areas and getting those trees down and kind of shredded or spread around to get the swales and that food production system going out there. I do find I don't have the energy to dedicate to my swales. It takes a lot more muscle to kind of do things out there. So much as I'd love to be out there all the time and really work at getting it under control, I've got to kind of do what my body's telling me and kind of spread out the muscle use amongst different activities. Now normally I'd like to cut things off at the surface, but as I've explained before with grasses, it's best just to dig them out and get them gone. Amazing how quickly you warm up doing this stuff. First jumper's off already, and we've got the sun coming out now, so hopefully the sky's clear. Oh, this hose hasn't been moved for some time, I think. Well, that didn't take too long. I think with recent rains, it's made the soil easier to work and not too damp that it gets muddy. But you can sort of see that this has been a garden bed in the past where I grew my sweet potatoes. And it won't take too much to convert this to my lovely strawberry bed. I think first I'm going to grab kind of a few bucket loads of my decomposed wood chip and spread that round before we get to planting any strawberries. With the garden bed ready now, I'll just clear some of these plants from the path. Looks a bit more like a path now. Now to bring this garden to life with a few plants. Alrighty, plenty of plants. We can squeeze them all in. I'll catch up with any leftover weeds while I plant them. Look, I've got my first strawberry already. Just here are my little seedlings that I planted 2.5 weeks ago. They're coming along really nicely, not quite big enough to get to the garden, but you can see there's roots coming out the bottom. What we're looking at today is my kale, which has been in a lot longer, like another 4 weeks longer. You can see that there's yellowing leaves, which is an indication it's exhausting the nutrients that are in the growing medium. But you can also see we've got some pest pressure, so it'd be helpful to remove those little guys as well. I think we've got a few on there. So this morning I want to get in and find some homes for this up in my garden. And I've also got some other brassicas, which I think is a sprouting broccoli. And these are some collie that I had in excess the last time when I was planting the collie. And I could use these to replace some which have been eaten down. I'll start by replacing one of my Tuscan kale in this garden bed here. This little guy has been totally eaten down. It was a small plant to start with, so it was behind the 8 ball, but some of these others are going quite nicely, so that's good to see. I'll replace that little plant, and I might even add in an extra plant to this garden bed. All right, I think we've got a couple of good plants to add in. That leaves me with these plants, which I might sneak in the middle of this leek bed actually. Now I don't really need tons of kale for personal consumption. Having lots of leafy greens means that I can just pick them off and throw them to my chickens. I might even plant some around these carrots that'll soon be harvested. I am planting them fairly close because I don't really mind if they don't get huge. By just having plants in the ground growing, even if you don't need them to consume, it actually provides food for the soil food web and helps to improve the soil. Okay, what's next in here? Let's replace some collies. My collies, which like the kale, are hiding in amongst my experimental broad bean patches. This one's been kind of eaten a bit, and this one's been eaten a little bit more, but we'll leave those ones at the moment. What I'll replace are plants like this that are non-existent and totally eaten down. So I'll whack another plant in the middle of this broad bean circle. Now, as for cutting down the broad beans, I'm not really sure how long I'll leave it for. Maybe until those little plants are double the size, so they've had a chance to kind of fix quite a bit of nitrogen before I chop them back and provide that energy to my growing cauliflowers. And here's another one here, which has still got the culprit on it. You know, I'm so worried about slugs that I've been forgetting about the little green critters that can eat your plants down overnight. Now I've got 2 more collies to squeeze in somewhere. If I feed some leaves to the chickens, I reckon I'll be able to squeeze them in at the back here. And I've just knocked over this plant completely. So we'll get that out of there and replace it with these guys. This is a self-seeded Russian kale in my garden, and it's the only one I've got left. So that's why I started some seeds to grow some more Russian kale. This is as good as those seeds grew, and it's looking like a very sad plant. But I'm going to plant it and see if we can get another of these beautiful plants going. I just love the colour. And again, the kale leaves can be fed to the chickens if I don't need it for myself. On the edge of this garden bed here, where I've got my zinnias, which will finish soon, some old celery plants, and this is a self-seeded tomato, which I don't know if we'll get much more off it. Some dirty tomatoes that have been sitting on the ground. But the other day I did clear around here, so I think I'll put the rest of my little brassicas just in this corner, and they should do nicely, I think. Okay, a couple of sprouting broccoli. I'm actually not too sure what this little plant is because my label has dropped off. And of course we've got the red Russian kale, which I'll get in first. It's got a bit of a root system on it, but hopefully it will respond to getting into the ground. Good luck, little one. Hopefully the slugs or green caterpillars don't get you. I'm still fairly new to growing plants using this snail method, and I have, with these older plants, made the mistake of covering the top of the plastic with a layer of soil, which means the roots can kind of spread itself past where you want them to go, which is what this one's done. Its roots have gone into kind of the next section. So I'm going to try and prise them out of there and hopefully not destroy it too much. So to avoid this issue, just don't spread your soil, your growing medium, across the top of your plastic on your snail. Anyway, I think we've saved that root for this plant, which is the strongest plant. And I've just pushed my tomato plant back out of the way so I can get this one in. That's all I'll be planting in the garden this morning. But before we go, I just thought I'd show you where I planted a seeding leek head a few weeks ago. I have had a bird digging around, so some of the plants have got separated out, but look at this for an amazing mass of leeks. If you're not great at raising seeds in little snails or just the traditional containers, just get a seed head and pop it in the garden. Make sure it stays wet, and you might have a mass of plants that you can spread around your own garden or those of family and friends to spread the love. It's compost turning day again, so I'm going to get on with this, but I would encourage you to do a bit of research into the soil food web. Check out my video, it does have some great information. It will help build the motivation to get this going at your place. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.